This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, so I'm here with another Welcome to Cosplay video. This time I'm going to be talking about competing in competitions, as you could probably tell from the title. So there are two types of competitions that I'm going to talk about, and one of them is larger, more popular cosplay competitions that you will see at places like BlizzCon, Anime Expo, SAC Anime, probably a bunch of other conventions all over the world. These are typically the more popular ones with more fierce competition, and it's just a overall more difficult cosplay contest. And the other one I'm going to be talking about are smaller contests, ones that you will probably see at local conventions. And when I say local conventions, it's because I come from a small town, so my local conventions are always really small. They have a lot of newer people and people who don't even make their costumes enter the competition because it's just more relaxed and less competitive. Those are the two that I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to start with a couple of things on the smaller one and then get into the larger competitions just because it will be easier to compare that way. So for the smaller ones, you typically just walk on, strike a few poses, and walk off when you go to the stage. There is not much more to the competition besides that. You sign up when you get there, or just hop in line. There might not even be sign-ups. Usually they do sign-ups so they can at least announce the character and your name. There's not really much for you to have to worry about doing competition-wise. They typically let everyone compete. That means bought costumes, altered, thrifted costumes, or fully handmade costumes, and everyone has a fair shot of winning. Usually judges will still go for the people who fully handmade their costumes because they kind of want to keep it, you know, a cosplay competition, which is just a form of craftsmanship competition. A couple other things they might judge you on are just your poses and how fitting they were to the character, or just some sort of creativity you put into a costume when you were putting it together. Like if it was thrifted or heavily altered, they would look at how you went about altering things and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Besides that, it's typically not too serious. Like, you don't have to panic and worry. It's just something you should have a lot of fun with and just enjoy yourself and go on and strike your poses and get your photo taken. And yeah, it is a bonus to probably make your costumes, because being a judge myself for smaller competitions, and I know other judges who always look at as well the craftsmanship portion and judge a lot based on that, because if you continue to compete in competitions, that is where you are headed. So this is a good gateway to larger competitions, is through the smaller competitions. So I'm going to kind of jump into larger conventions and then compare them as I go along now. I'm going to try to go in order of how your day or preparing for the event is going to go. First off, you will need to look at the convention's website and check their competitions rules. Every competition might be a little different. Typically, they're pretty much the same thing. They will tell you that no bought costumes are allowed to enter, and the judges will know if your costume is bought. It is very obvious when a costume is bought and when a costume is handmade, no matter how well you sew. Sometimes it can be difficult, but a judge will be able to tell, and they will even ask you to prove it, and I'll get to that in a second. I have seen competitions that will allow some bought pieces, but you have to have heavily altered them, and I have seen others that will allow none. Everything has to be from scratch. So that is just something to check on. Some are a lot more strict with the rules than others. Take photos of your work in progress when you're making it, because you may be asked to show them your progress. In a lot of the up there contests, they do ask you to put together a portfolio of your work in progress photos to prove that you have made it, and so that you can further talk about how you made it. Again, check the rules. Not every contest requires this, but some do, especially the really big ones. Some contests will have pre-applications because they only have so many slots, so you have to have your cosplay finished long before the actual competition. Submit it, and they sit there and they'll shift through it, pick the top 50 or 30 or whatever, and then you move on to the final round, which is at the convention. So when preparing for the contest, typically larger conventions will have skits. You have so many minutes or even just a minute on stage to do a skit that is fitting to your character, and you will be judged on it. It will go towards overall showmanship as well as some other small rewards. You will probably need music for that, so when you are packing for the convention, make sure you have your music or your soundtrack for your skit on multiple platforms. Have it on your phone, email it to yourself, bring it on a USB, bring it on a CD. Just make sure you have all your bases covered. And then practice, practice, practice. Practice a whole lot. Make sure you got everything down, you got your timing down. Watch yourself, have somebody else watch yourself, record your skit, and then play it back and see if there's anything you need to change or anything you need to fix. Make sure to practice until you are confident with it. And if you are not someone who wants to perform on stage, do not worry. A lot of contests will still only be walk-ons or have a walk-on portion. That means that there is a portion typically at the end. I know SAC Anime does one where people can walk on. Sometimes they'll even allow bot costumes to walk on too, although they will not be in the running to win. If you have handmade your costumes, you will typically still be in the running to win. You just can't win best in show or whatever that you can't win like the grand overall thing, but you can still win the craftsmanship portion. So there's still chances, and then there's also like judge awards and stuff. For the walk-on portion, it sounds exactly how I explained and works pretty much the same as smaller competitions where you just walk on, strike a couple poses, and then walk off. At the convention, make sure you are well rested one before the day of the competition. Try to have your cosplay all together and don't be finishing it in the hotel the night before it. Make sure you eat before the competition because that's actually really important, and you don't want to like collapse on stage or faint because you're so hungry. Also stay hydrated. A lot of larger conventions, and this is a big difference between larger and smaller ones, will have that is basically what it sounds. You get in line sometime before the competition. I don't know if it goes in order all the time or not. Typically you just get there as early as possible if you want to kind of get it out of the way, or they give you a time slot to show up in, and you wait in line. You get into usually a different little room that's separated from the rest of the convention and the rest of the competition. Yes, you meet the judges and they will ask you about your costume, and a lot of the times they won't ask you anything specific, so make sure to think about some key points of your costume or what went into making it before you go in there, and then talk about that. Typically they will say, well, tell us about your costume. Brag about everything you have done and all the hard work you have put into this costume, and they want to hear what you have to say about your costumes. Then maybe after they might ask you a little bit more about some specifics. Be prepared for them to flip your scenes and check and see if the inside is finished, or come up and like touch parts of your costume just to see what kind of material you used. Usually they won't go, ooh, they'll just go, oh, okay, the inside's finished, or it's lined or something. Or if they don't do that, make sure to mention that it's lined, because that's always really impressive to have a completely finished inside and out cosplay. If you have a prop, they will probably hold your props, so let them hold your props. They are cosplayers too. They know how to handle props. I'll handle it with care. And if you are showing that you don't want them to hold your prop, that usually tells them that it's not well made and it probably won't hold up for very long. And they're not going to clack them around. They're just going to see, is this, well, they're probably just going to check to see if you think it's sturdy enough. Don't point out your mistakes. Don't be like, oh yeah, I made this, but this part's not that good, so don't pay it. Like, don't point it out. If there is something you don't like about your costumes, don't talk about it at all. Try to skip over it, and hopefully maybe they won't notice. Don't lie though, either they will know when you're lying. Like I said, don't lie about you making a costume that you actually bought. Again, they probably will know, especially if they do the show us reference photos or videos of you working on the costume yourself. So these parts often get overlooked, and this is just a kind of note to you, everyone. Make sure to put some time into these aspects. Make sure your wig is nice and styled. I know I sometimes lack in the wig department myself because I just get too caught up making everything else, and then I don't leave myself enough time to style the wig well. Make sure you put time into your makeup as well, because this pulls all of the costume together to have your makeup done and your wig done and then have your costume. When you are on stage, stay in character. Even if you mess up, play it off and stay in character doing it. Make a joke out of it if that's what your character would do. If it is a walk-on competition, make sure you practice your poses as well. I noticed that I said earlier to rehearse your skits, but it's also important to practice poses in the mirror, especially paying attention to your facial expressions. Okay, and most important, remember to have fun and just be a good sport. Even if you don't win, stay positive. I know that can be difficult for some people. I know it sucks. It is something you are going to have to deal with the best way possible, and just be a good sport about it. If you're really curious about like why you didn't win or something, I guess probably ask the judges.Maybe they'd be open to telling you. I wouldn't go up there and be like, why didn't I win? I was so good. But if you go up there and be like, do you have any tips for me? What would you have liked to see me do differently, or what I could have improved? Usually competitions are really close though. Like, it's really hard to pick a winner, and they talk about it forever and they have to debate it for like ages. So don't get too down about it. It's not like it's like, oh yeah, winner, winner, winner. It's actually really hard, and it was probably really close. So yeah, try again next time if you didn't win, and just work on improving your skills. That is pretty much it for this video. I hope this helps you guys in the future with your competitions and stuff, and if you have any helpful tips, leave them below for other people to read as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a lovely day.